Hey guys, welcome back. What we're looking at now is inserting the drawer, creating the drawer for our nightstand. It's the final step in our nightstand project, and there's a bit to it, so let's get to work. First off, here's your final project, okay? You should have a nightstand, and let's make sure everything works in here. Okay, all right, we're good to go. You should have a drawer that fits in here, and I've pulled the drawer out so you can kind of see what it looks like. We've got the finished nightstand with that drawer in there. And that's what I want for a screenshot. If you have the drawer fully inside, then I can't really see anything. Or I may have you do a screenshot with it closed and then a separate screenshot of the whole drawer just by itself. But that's the final look with the drawer in the nightstand. Let's go ahead and look at the drawer itself and get started. There's actually a bit more to it than I thought there was initially. This will be a little more in-depth video than I initially thought. Okay, first thing to notice, there's a face frame on the drawer. The face frame is just a piece of wood on the front that if we were to delete it off, would leave this on the front. And the front of the drawer like this isn't going to look good. We talked the other day about face frames. This is a drawer facing for that drawer because we've got these rabbets that we cut in. The rabbets are how the drawers connected together. And by putting the rabbet seams on the front and then covering them with that face, we've got no seams. The sides are nice and clean, and so is the front. The only seams would be on the back, which nobody ever sees on a drawer. So that's why we're going to have it like that. Okay, it looks like this, nice and clean. Cover up those seams, excuse me. And so that's the first piece there is you've got a face on that front of the drawer. Second thing to notice is there's two sides, and the sides have rabbets cut into them. This rabbet is cut into the side panel. Nothing is cut out of this back panel piece. That's just a piece of wood that's slotted into the rabbet. And there's a rabbet cut on the front edge as well on the side, and same thing on the other side. So the two sides have rabbets cut into them. The front and the back are just boards. The other thing to notice is down here on the bottom to insert this piece of plywood. It's just like the back of the nightstand. It's just a thin piece of plywood. It's a 1/4 inch, and we go about a 1/4 inch up from the bottom. And then we put in this 1/4 inch piece of plywood, and we cut a dado into the wood here. So there's actually a piece of a slot of wood cut out all the way around the edge, just like we did in our side panels. And you'll insert this into those slots and then close up the drawer so that this drawer bottom is actually hooked in all the way around. It's not just glued. There's no nails holding it from underneath. It's actually in a slot all the way around. And that's in some of the screenshots. We'll see that. So let's get building and let's do all that. So the first thing is to know the dimensions of what we're going to need. So front to back, our dimensions of these two side pieces, we'll start with those, are going to be, let's just move this other one out of the way for now. Let's get him out of the way. So now we've got a nightstand without a drawer. Okay, so we're going to measure from the back of that inner panel there area, the back corner, up to the front, but not all the way to the outside edge, because this section where the face frame is covering, that's going to be where that face frame, the front of the drawer is going to cover. That 3/4 inch piece on the front of the drawer flushes right in here into the slot where your face frame is. So the actual drawer itself is just from that line to the back. And we don't measure exactly, because if you make a drawer that's exactly that length, it's going to end up potentially bumping into that back panel before the drawer flushes. And when you close a drawer, you don't want it to bump into that back panel and knock against it. It's not going to sound or feel finished. So you actually leave a small gap in the back there. And then you just slide the drawer. And if you wanted to have a stop, you can put a stop in there or something to stop it going any further. But you don't want it to hit against the back panel. It's going to kind of rattle and sound cheap and such. So we would just measure. We measure from that back corner out to here. On mine, that's 111 7/8. because I think probably we put like an 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch piece of ply on the back there. And so that was 2 feet minus that, maybe an 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch piece of ply. I don't remember what I had you do. So it shortened that up just a little bit. So we'll say that we're going to make our drawer 111 3/4. 111 3/4 gives us a little bit of gap so it doesn't ever touch the back. So we're just going to make a rectangle on the ground that is 1 foot 11 3/4 by, and we actually don't know the height. I'm just going to say 2 inches for the second, just because I already started drawing this. And so we'll measure that as well. Okay. Now that height, let's see what that should be. Top to bottom, 6 1/4. And again, if we made something actually 6 1/4 and then tried to fit it into a 6 1/4 hole, not going to work. So you want to have a slight gap to give it a little bit of room to slide in and out. So we'll make it 6 1/8. That way we've got a slight gap at the top there. So 6 1/8 is what we actually want that to be. I'm going to use push-pull real quick to make it 3/4 because everything's 3/4 on this nightstand, which makes it easier to find that side. So this was 2 inches we just set it at. So I need to push and pull it farther. So it was at 2, and we need to get it out to 6 1/8, which just means we're adding an additional 4 inches and 1/8. Okay. So if you were at 2, you can add 4 1/8. Now you've got 6 1/8, or you can now go back and just redo the whole thing if you need to make your dimensions work. There we go. Click, make it a group. We're also going to make it a component, so we only have to build one of these, and then the rabbits and the data we cut out of the one will just mirror on the other. So I'm going to make that a component and call it drawer side. And you can see I already named it that because I already did all this once. We'll just call it drawer side 1, just so we can get something named for it. And put a texture on it because later on it'll already be textured then. And if you go outside the group, the whole thing will color, or maybe not. I have to go one at a time. Okay, so there's our drawer side. Let's go ahead and get this. Doesn't look like this whole thing was grouped. So now I'm going to explode any piece of this I can grab and explode so that the whole thing, if you grab it and it doesn't all get selected, some of your clicks get lost out in the internet. That's a problem later. So make sure your triple click selects all of it. Now I'm going to regroup and recomponent that guy. I'm just going to call it drawer side 2 because that other one is probably taken as well. And now let's rotate this guy up on end. So to go into that nightstand eventually, I'm going to put it up on end and running this way. And that's not going to help that dimension. So you're looking at green will help. So if I can get green to pop back up, and if not, boy, there we go. There we go. Stands it on end. Sure, if we stand it up on end, now we can rotate it. I'm just going to use my arrows to find what I want. That's what I want. There we go. Now, so we want it to roll. I'll think that is my left side. So we need to cut rabbits on each end of it. Let's go ahead and make our copy. and we'll figure out the exact distance apart later. For now, there's our copies, and we're going to cut that rabbit right on the edge. Now, because the wood that we're using is 3/4 of an inch, that's how deep the rabbit would go. Every rabbit's depth, like how wide, or excuse me, I should probably call it width. The width of the rabbit is the width of whatever the piece of wood is. The depth, how far in you're going, is always half. So since this is a 3/4 piece of wood, half of its thickness is 3/8. So I'm going to draw a line. Let's see. We're going to go down, so we need to go over this way and this way. So let's make a guide that's 3/8. Now notice I'm going from the outside edge. It doesn't matter because I'm going to the middle. 3/8 is going to be the same line on either edge, whichever. If I start from the back or the front, it's still giving me a line right at the midpoint. And then the other line is going to be 3/4. And we can see right there, that's the dado that we need to cut. And then you may need to go all the way around. Sometimes it seems to work, sometimes not. There you go. I can select just that face and push-pull it. It's kind of fun. You can see it's also happening on that component, but you also can see from that we have to flip that component. Let's get rid of the guides for a sec. They're annoying. And let's flip this guy around. I just use flip along. But I want to be able to see the part that I'm going to flip, and that menu always gets in the way. So let's try it from here. There we go. Red. That's not what we want. So we're going to do red again to put that rabbit back up there. We want it to flip to the inside edge. So just keep trying the different colors. We'll try green. Green didn't flip it at all in a meaningful way. Let's try blue. There we go. Blue is what we wanted. Now we've got the two sides of the drawer facing each other. We've got rabbits cut on both edges. Let's just do the other one on the back, and we're already done with that piece. So let's do the exact same thing. If we turn the guides back on, we've already got one of the guides we need. So now we just need the other one 3/4. Okay, so remember, we're going 3/4 in from the edge because that's going to slot that piece along the back. It's going to plug right in here. And then how deep to go is half the thickness of that piece of wood. And I go all the way around because it may end up being needed, sometimes not. And there you go. Rabbits are done. Turn off those guides. Okay, before we create the boards to slot into those, we need to figure out how wide apart they should be, because their width apart is the length of the board, or vice versa. So just measure how wide it is in here. Any of these will do. And we're 111 1/4. Now again, if you're going to fit something into this hole, you can't make it 111 1/4. So we're going to make it 111 1/8, which gives us 1/8 of wiggle room, which is a 1/16 on each side. I think that's perfect. So 111 1/8 is the length we're going to make. 111 1/8. And the height is going to be this height. So I'm just going to draw my rectangle right there. And then I'm just going to pull. Now, before I pull that out to the length we need, I just realized 111 1/8 is our full width. Now recall, maybe you already noticed ahead of me, we can't make the board 111 1/8 because it's got a 3/8 here and it's got a 3/8 here that are already added to that full width of this drawer. So 3/8 and 3/8, 6/8, 3/4. It's the equivalent of one of those boards. So we actually need to do a little bit of math. Our 111 1/8, we have to take off 3/4 of an inch from that. That's going to require some math, which I don't have my calculator here for. So I'm going to have to do this off the top of my head. 111 1/8 minus 3/4. 3/4 is just 6/8. So we're taking 6/8 away from 111 and 1/8. The first eighth goes away. Now it's just 111 even. 5 more eighths makes it 110 and 3/8. Okay. So 110 and 3/8. So we want that to be 1 foot 10 and 3/8. And then if we go ahead and grab that board and move it based on that exact rabbet we just cut. There we go. We should have a fit. And let's see. We should have 111 and 1/8. Let's see if we did our work right. All right. There you go. So we're exactly 1/8 of an inch less than the actual width. There we go. Let's make that a component. It's kind of in the way. There we go. And let's just make a move copy of this guy. And there you go. There's your drawer. Now, why did we make a component of that? Because we're also going to cut that dado. And when we cut that dado, we'll only have to cut it in 2 boards. The other 2 will automatically match, and we're almost done. Let's just cut it in the front here. And we're going to cut 1/4 from the bottom. And then from there, we're going to cut 1/4. There you go. So in between those is going to be the rabbet that we cut. Okay. Now notice if we just started right on this edge, we're going to miss this other piece here. We want to get it all the way out. Let's plug this in. So I'm going to move these pieces apart momentarily. So we can cut those. And so that's, whoop. Oh my gosh, too much stuff, too close. So let's do this. Let's try that again. Now remember, they're going to go half the thickness. So we're not cutting here on the front. We're going to cut here on the side. And then, oh man, I just can't seem to get those out of the way far enough. And then we'll pull that all along that edge. So let's do another halfway. And do some lines. Make sure it's got that color. Now we know And we can try it, already grabs that face. Push that down to the end. And that little slot is what our bottom of our drawer is going to sit in, and it's going to be all the way around. And we should be able to see it's on the other side, but of course not on the right edge. So let's do our rotate trick. And it's different, the direction of rotation this time, so I just start right at the top. Red didn't seem to do anything. Green, in this case, was the one we wanted, so there we go. Now I'm just going to do the exact same thing one more time on this guy, cutting alongside this guy. And that looks to be the exact same set of guides that we already ran, so I'm just going to trust that is and use them again. And notice we're cutting to the same depth that's already there. We don't have to measure it because we already cut exactly halfway. Now notice it's not highlighting, which means something, there we go, wasn't quite there, but it is now. And it didn't quite go through. And there we go. Sometimes that happens. Delete that away, plus that edge, and there we go. And that should be all the rabbits we need. Turn off all those ridiculous tags that appear. And let's get all this stuff moved back together. Make sure your seams are correct. That looks good. And then before I pull that last one in, I'm going to put that panel into place. So let's go ahead and build that panel. Oh, and we can see this guy also has an issue. He needs to be flipped. And that did not help. So let's do it again. And there we go. Now our rabbits are correct, and so is our dado. It's nice and clean. So let's just, I'm going to try and draw the rectangle tool right into the corner here, and then just fill this whole thing in with a push-pull. And there we go. Looks like it's going to work. Now you can pull it right out to this edge here. And let's see if that's going to be correct. We may need it to extend a little further. If it extends right to the edge, nope, because this overlaps it. So there you go. Perfect. So if we look, it's now encased all the way around. And that's going to hold it in place. Make it a group. Give it a color. Pick something other than the regular wood. Make it look like the plywood of your project. And there you go. And there's our drawer. Now, either the front or the back needs to have the face to make it the front, either this side or the back. These are the two front back edges. So I'm just going to throw the front right on here. Pull it out to 3/4. There we go. And we might have a finished drawer here. Now let's grab all of that, make it all a group, and move that whole group, grabbing a corner. And snug it right in there. Now, Notice a couple things. It's not exact fit. It shouldn't be. That gap would be real world. You need that gap or it's not going to slide and fit in and out. It's going to jam. Second, we can see that there's a little bit of gap here and no gap here, which is because we use the program to snug into that corner, which means our entire quarter inch of gap we gave is on this side. So easy fix, remove it. And we want to go just a hair to the left, which would be, we've got a total of an eighth. And so we want a 16th on each side, which is what it just moved to. So that's perfect. So there we go. So now we've got an even slight bit of edge on each side, a little bit on the top. That looks great. Last bit is just that handle. That handle can be made, what I did was I just put a circle on the ground. I don't think that's on the ground. There we go. We want a blue circle on the ground. And I made it pretty good sized. I find it's easier to draw large and scale it down. And then out of the center, I just did exactly what you guys did making the vase. And now come up with whatever you want. And the idea is that this will be the top front of the knob. This will be the bottom of the knob up against the face of the drawer. And just design something that you would like to use as that. And there you go. Erase that. Get your follow me ready. And there we go, the world's biggest knob. Group that guy. Get rid of that. And when you have these in the way and you want to get rid of them, start a line or something else. Now just scale it down. Scale tools S. Just grab and scale that guy really small and then throw him on the front of your nightstand. Let's see, we want to rotate this guy. I'm just going to use the move tool, rotate him just like that. Then move him again. And he's a bit big right now. We're going to need to scale him a little more. Don't do it like that, evidently. And I'm using my arrow keys to try and force him to stay on a certain, so that if a single click gets him that way, now I'll do a single click and move him over on that axis so he doesn't disappear into the panel. And I think that looks pretty centered. And there you go, finished nightstand. Select that, shift, select that, right click, make that all one group. And now you can move and just stay on that green axis and you can slide out your drawer. And there you go. You've got your finished, oh, something's wrong here. Do you guys see? We've got a mistake. There's no face on the front of the drawer. Did we put it on backwards? Where's it at? It is. It's on the other side. How'd that happen? Didn't even notice. So make sure you don't do the same thing. Easily fixed. Just rotate it around. But then go inside the group and you got to move your knob to the other side. There we go. We can see. You got the idea. Line that up. It's not quite aligned. Recenter that. It's not quite centered, but you get the idea, guys.